I went from 6K to 20K in like a month.
What did you do in January that allowed you to go from that sort of 20 range to where you're at now?
You need to find other ways to like monetize that audience. That has been massive for my growth. Like honestly, like this month, like just closed 60K and 30% of that is like not from retainers nearly. I think we just last week closed 25K of setups. When I hit 50K, like it did not feel as good as when I hit my first 10K month.
Yeah. Alrighty guys, so we're here with Angus, who runs an email marketing agency. He's another person who scaled really, really quickly and really impressively. He's a great, good friend of mine at this point. We've got a few ties up with the family. He works with my brother as well, so really excited to have a chat with him today. And I'll throw it to you, Angus, if you want to just cast your mind back to, obviously we met back in October, and things are a little bit different now compared to what they were back then. And obviously you can go into that yourself, but do you want to give us an overview of kind of where you've come and where you've been from? Because I think it's really interesting. I think there's going to be some juicy value for everyone listening.
Yeah, cool. So as you said, my name's Angus. I run an email and SMS agency for e-com stores. Yeah, we first had a chat back in, I think it was the first week of October or like early October. I'd sort of been full-time in my agency for maybe like 4 months. Like I'd been freelancing email marketing for like 18 months or something, but had never really dived into, this is going to be my full-time thing going down this route. So I think it was early June or something. I said I bit the bullet, went full-time, called you in October. I was struggling. I think I had like maybe 4 clients on board. I was probably like somewhere between like 6K a month, 7K a month maybe. And I was really struggling. Like I had no idea where to go. And then, fast forward to today, we've been working together for officially like 3-4 months. Unofficially probably the whole 6 months. And then, had our biggest month yet.
Huge. So you've gone freelancing for about 18 months and then you took the leap, which is a really, really hard thing, I know, for a lot of people. What gave you the balls to do that at the time?
Well, I think it was sort of coming naturally itself. Like I was freelancing as a side hustle and it was just going well. Like I wasn't putting effort into scaling. But it was a bit of word of mouth. Like I signed with some popular clients down here in Australia, like 2 influencer clients, 9 to 5 Fitness and Prime Train. And, they've obviously got good personal brands. So I performed a good service for them. Like obviously when you're starting out, that's been like the most vital thing is like make sure you are really good to your first few clients. And they were, really good with giving me referrals and stuff. I grew sort of word of mouth to the point where I was like, as a side hustle, probably making more than the job I was working. So I was kind of like,
so it became obvious to just go full time. All right, that makes sense. Obviously, so we talked in October. I remember you booked, I think I had my calendar on my website or whatever, and you kind of just booked in. And I'd seen you a little bit around. I think we might have chatted in the DMs briefly. So I was like, we'll just have a chat, see what happens. I remember I was driving at the time because I was like, we'll just have a yarn or have a chat. I don't actually remember exactly what was said on the call. And I don't really remember exactly what your mindset was, but I remember I was definitely like, nah, you need to just lock in. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I was struggling. Like in hindsight, like I was very lost and I was probably at like where a lot of younger kids find themselves at the start of their, I guess, entrepreneurial journey. It was like, I was reading a lot of stuff on Twitter, watching TikToks, watching YouTube, like your classic sort of guru shilling stuff. And I was like, holy crap, I'm missing something. Like, why aren't I fucking rich yet? And then because, I just thought I was good at my service. I was sending DMs and maybe land a few clients. And I was like, how can I keep the ball rolling? I'd started trying a new offer. Like in September, I launched into a new offer with a mate of mine, got nothing. And then I was like, holy shit, I need to work my life out, and booked a call with you.
Yeah, it's a pretty classic, it's classic, oh shit, I've sent 20 cold DMs and I haven't hit 100K a month yet. Why am I inadequate? I'm the worst. I suck. I'm pretty just stupid and ugly. That's typically what people go through towards us.
It's honestly I remember sort of getting to know a few guys in the space. Like the biggest thing for me was looking at a lot of the people on Twitter and going, holy crap, like they're making killings. Like they're making millions of dollars and I'm a brokey. Like this sucks. Like everyone on social media is calling you like a broke idiot. Like, and I was like, I'm just missing something here. But I think the biggest thing was realizing like, honestly, you just got to grind. Like you just got to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So what were the action steps that I gave you in October? I obviously don't want to say like I was responsible for it because I definitely wasn't. We chatted for like 20 minutes, but it seemed like after that, you just decided to actually do stuff because obviously you probably couldn't have even afforded to work with us at the time. What was the journey like from between October to when we actually started working together in January?
So it was not so much like, I don't think it was so much you were like, okay, go run this campaign, go do this marketing channel. You were like, bro, like you're on the right course. You've got a good offer. Like you're fulfilling. Like you need to just keep working and keep working hard and like stay in your lane and sort of ignore the noise. And for me, it was at that time, I knew no one else in the industry. Like where I was from, my friends, like I just didn't know anyone else like in the industry at all. So it was like I had no idea if what I was doing was on the right track. So I was kind of running around like a headless chook, and you were like, no, you're on the right track. Just keep going, keep hustling. It's just a numbers game. Like you just got to do more. And I was like, all right, that's sort of the validation I needed to be like, I just need to keep hustling. And I did that until it was probably a month after our call. I went from 6K to 20K in like a month.
How easy is that?
Yeah, it's just in the, like, honestly, it sounds like,
No, it's 100% true, because if there was one thing that I wish I could tell to everyone, and it's the biggest mistake that I made as well, it's that when you listen to like anything kind of fantastical or anything that you see on social media, and it's like, oh, you need to do this new mechanism, or you need to add this to your service, you need to sell AI chatbots, you need to, sell whatever XYZ new thing, it just completely ruins your progress. And the problem is that those sorts of things get sold a lot more to the, like what you were, which is kind of like the vulnerable semi-consumer, like business, but you're kind of a consumer.
Yeah.
And they get sold to you, and you get kind of made to you get kind of put in this insecure position where you're like, fuck, I don't know anyone from my hometown. I don't really know what to do. The only information that I have is social media. And then you kind of just make the wrong moves, like starting a new offer or anything like that. When in reality, the stuff that sells is always the stuff that's competitive. If something's not selling, it's because there's no buyers. Yeah. And if there's no competition, it's because there's no buyers. And that's like, it's one of the most outstanding, it's insane to me that I didn't realize this, because I was the same as you, where I would say, I need to add this onto my service, or I need to do this. And it makes me sad, honestly.
It's like, it's the grass is greener. For me, the grass has always been greener. It's always something I struggled with when I was like growing up, was like, I'm doing this thing, that thing looks super attractive.
Yeah.
Like maybe I should launch fully into that first. And I always struggled with that, but I found I always made the best progress after like having that conversation with you and spending less time worrying about how well the people ahead of me were doing, and more time focusing on like, am I making, the best progress out of my day possible, sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's the worst thing, because the only reason that you wouldn't have thought that in the first place is because of how good some marketing that's behind all the new stuff and the new gizmos always is, versus, it's not sexy to just say, hey, if you send this many outreaches with an offer that it's pretty good at the very least, and you have a little bit of proof, or you have some examples of your work, you know what, maybe you will just run into someone that needs your service, because people always buy email marketing, landing pages, all this stuff. They always buy that. And people who do email marketing, they always think, oh, well, yeah, I'm just another email marketer. I just do email marketing, because they feel like everyone does it. But it's just because they see all their competitors, but their customers don't see their competitors. Yeah. And if they had, they would have already worked with them.
It was like what you said in your newsletter the other day. Like, if you asked one of your clients right now, how many email marketers would they know? The answer would be just me, probably. Like, if I went to any of my clients and said, like, yeah, could you go to another email marketing agency right now? They would all say no. None of them would know one other person.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's one of the worst limiting beliefs that you can have, I think. But yeah, that sort of kind of ties a circle. And so really, the difference between, and this is probably relevant to anyone in that stage where you were in October, is like the difference between being at 5, 6, 7 to 10K a month and 20K a month, or even probably 30, is kind of like, you just have to really continue and not pivot for the right amount of time, send the right amount of outreaches, and try and make sure that time when you're just figuring out is as small as possible. And that's kind of a really easy action item for everyone in that range. But talk to me about when you went through. So obviously in January, I think I texted you, I said, we're starting this thing, we're thinking about it. What do you think? What did you do in January that allowed you to go from that sort of 20 range to where you're at now?
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of texted me at a good time. Like, we'd been talking, so it wasn't like, you'd sort of helped me along the way, and you'd sort of be keeping up with me, and obviously I'd sort of taken myself from, 6 to around the 20 mark. And then you said, look, I've got this thing. And I was just like, bang, get me in it, like straight away. Like, and it was one thing I learned was like, you know, reducing your feedback loops, as you just said. And for me, like buying something like that was going to be the number one way to do that. And then it was, oh man, there's so much that like, you know, 1000x, like the program taught me, but a lot of it was just like breaking down what is a colossal task into daily action steps and just staying on course, like showing up every day, doing what I needed to do that day, having like my list of non-negotiables of like, these are all the things I need to get done. Like if I want to, you know, see success and actually sign clients, and then go from there. And the other thing was like, the biggest change for me has sort of been not going into a new offer, but offering different things within my niche. Like, I mean, it's really email marketing specific, but like one thing I learned was like that Matt sort of based a lot of his philosophy off was, you know, only such a small percentage of your target audience or your total addressable market is going to be able to be on a retainer with you. Like they're going to be qualified and they're going to be able to pay you a retainer. You need to find other ways to like monetize that audience. That has been massive for my growth. Like honestly, like this month, like I think we'll just close 60K and 30% of that is like not from retainers nearly.
Right. So you've gone from you're at 20 to you've probably sold more than that in just what setups?
Yeah. So I think we closed, I don't even know the number off the top of my head. I think we just last week closed 25K of setups.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of a jump. Do you want to break that down? So you've gone and sort of taken the philosophy of not everyone in your market is going to be able to afford a recurring service. And it's also the side thing of that is that it's very difficult to sell a monthly recurring service to a cold customer because it's essentially like saying, hey, stranger, let's get married, rather than saying, let's go on a few dates first.
Yeah.
So what does that process actually look like? Because I think when people normally talk about this sort of thing, they really rarely get into the actual, what do you do? So what does that process look like from point A, I've never sold a flow setup. I've just kind of done cold DMs and sold recurring services because that's kind of what people say to do. And then now you're at like, holy shit, I just closed like 20K in a week of setups.
Yeah, well, I think for me, it was like, obviously the highest lifetime value client you're going to get is a recurring client. So I was like, well, I want recurring clients. So for me, it was always chasing the retainer and chasing, you know, long-term partnerships because I was like, well, that's where the cash is, right? So by design, I would naturally disqualify so many people. Like I would have people book calls with me who would genuinely benefit from like just having flows set up or something. And I would be like, oh, you know, you're not going to be a qualified client for my recurring service. Like, let's just revisit this. And then obviously it fizzles out where then I got to a mindset of like, hang on, I can still sell these people something. Like, and I can still help them by selling them this flow setup. Why am I not doing that? You and Matt sort of said, brother, you need to have a one-time service. Like it's going to be massive. And then so I was naturally then going out of my way to potentially look for these leads that in the past I was just neglecting.
Yep.
So one, I was bringing in more leads through the program naturally. And then two, when someone would come across my desk who was potentially not qualified before, I was still taking that sales call in the mindset of like, how can I help this person from a holistic point of view? And then after the first two flow setups, I was like, hang on, there's legs to like there's legs to this. Obviously it's really obvious in hindsight, but just something I'd never explored. And then before you know it, I'd close like 5 or 6, and it's something that just a lot of stores are wanting at the moment, I guess, that I hadn't sort of thought about.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess a really good question for you specifically that I think people don't also talk about too often is when you're delivering these flow setups, obviously it's not as if you're just like, hey, pay me X amount of money, and then you just add them to Slack and never talk to them. What does that process look like when you're having, like, because it's really fragile when you have that initial client relationship. What does that look like for your agency in particular, where you're really just trying to drive the most value as possible off the rip?
Well, flow setups are actually funny because they're way more labor intensive in the first two. Well, they're like a 3-week process, right? Like the max time a flow setup is going to take from like signing the contract to offboarding the client if they don't stay on with you is like a month max. And that's depending on like how much they want to revise work and stuff. So it's like you sign them, they pay you a bigger fee up front. Like say they're paying you like 6K for a flow setup. It's more expensive than a retainer. So they almost want like a quicker win, or they're a little bit more nervous in that purchase cycle because they're like, well, I've just parted ways with 6K. I hardly know this guy. We've had one sales call. And then, so for me, it's about like, we rally hard to deliver like a win in the first 24 hours, which is like a design or something, showing them that we're working, giving like an outlook of like, this is what your 3 weeks is going to look like. Here's a design. Do you like it? And then from there, just constant communication and updates every 2 or 3 days until we've delivered.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that the agency space just completely butchers, because I've bought agency services. I've paid people, tens of thousands of dollars for different services, and it's almost within about 48 to 72 hours. If nothing's happening, you're kind of almost mentally checked out in a way. You're kind of like, this guy's just got me on some stupid deal. He's not very proactive. Nothing's really happening. So it's very good. It's a good thing that we implement at 1000x Leads as well. It's like when you join, you have to just deliver something immediately.
The first thing, it was the first flow setup I closed, I butchered. Like, it's like it's hard because when you're offering a new service on the side of your retainers, it's like a completely different service. It's a completely different delivery, which I didn't think it was a different delivery. I was like, it'll just fit into our fulfillment cycle really naturally and we'll just churn it out. But because of like the higher upfront fee, higher expectation, you really got to be on the ball. And I was not on the ball, and I dropped the ball in like the first maybe week, and didn't like it. We ended up like recovering, and it was all right. But that was a scare that I was happy to have in the first one, and not like after signing 5 of them or something.
Yeah, I mean it's good to have it at the start. But yeah, I think like I said before, it's something that people kind of butcher as well. Even just not having the one-time service, or thinking, I'm just going to sell one-time services, or I'm just going to sell this recurring service, when, like you said, it is kind of just mixing. There's going to be different segments of the market that are in different stages. You can't really apply non-specific solutions to people's businesses when everyone's business is very unique. So it's good to hear that you've implemented that to such success. I guess the question for me now would be, what do you think the biggest bottleneck in your business is? Because you've scaled about a 10x in 6 months, which isn't typical, especially with email marketing. Where do you see your current challenges, and how do you think you're going to go about fixing them?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always been lead flow, which I think is becoming better and better. Like this year's been each month's more leads than the last, and it's something that we've been fixing proactively with 1000x, which has been really good. Hence the name, I guess, 1000x leads. But like,
it checks out.
like besides that, like it's operations is something you're not considering when you're coming from a freelancer background. Like, I don't know, it's the way I've sort of operated my whole life, like whether it was like school, uni, whatever. It was like, I'm very like in my own lane. I will do it. Like I'll do everything, and I'm happy to do that. Yep. And I really struggled at the prospect of like, wow, I need to hire someone. What does that even look like? What do they do? How do I manage them? I'm not good at like delegating a task that is very specific without wanting to have my hands on it. So obviously when I met Cal, your brother, like operates so similarly to me in the fact that like he can do that whole process himself as well. So we started gelling. But I think in the future, it's going to be operations and like building a team, I think, like, which is, I guess, the natural cycle for any agency who wants to scale.
Yeah. I mean, when you get so many leads, it's, it does get tough with the operation, but it is what it is. You got to fix that stuff up. So yeah, I guess if you were to put together an action plan for the next 6 months, what does that look like? Because you've had, at the very least, your initial success, and I'm sure you'd like to say just getting started, $60K in a month is great, but I think you can do a lot. You can do a lot in this space, because like I said, not many people do that with email marketing. It's typically, I see a lot of email marketing agencies really, really, really struggle with the level of competition that there is, but you've kind of just been like, I don't really care. So what do you think you're going to do over the next 6 months that's going to be, continually just giving you those 10x improvements?
I think just dialing in one chat, like not one channel, like I want to dial in all the channels, but really doubling down on what's working and not neglecting. Like in the past, I kind of would have a spike in revenue, plateau, have a spike, plateau. And every time I'd plateau, I'd freak out and go, oh, holy crap, I'm doing nothing. And it was because I would spike and then I would, rush to go back and fulfill. And then I would go to the next level where it really like hamstrings your momentum a lot. So for me, it's going to be, how can I keep it scaling while I'm fulfilling operations at a high level that's matching it? I think it's going to be a lot to do with like ads funnels. Like if I'm thinking genuine action steps, like on a technical level, it's going to be, how can I get ads extremely profitable and firing in a predictable manner and not like just here and there? Like I think that's going to be the biggest leverage. The other one is like cold email is something that you're really big on in 1000x, something I've probably personally more struggled with and still managed to scale. So it's like, if I can get that firing as well, I think that'll be like a massive channel.
Yeah, 100%. I think the thing that a lot of people have to be aware of is that you'll always have the channels that are more profitable for you. So for example, if you've always historically done really, really well with content because you're just naturally better at that, and you've maybe got some clients with paid ads, you've got some clients with cold email as well, maybe you have a few partnerships and you get a lot of referrals. It's not that you have to focus on all of them all the time at once. It's like, I know let's say my best channel is going to be content. I know I'm just, for example, yourself, let's say I'm a very charismatic young man. I'm one of the best in content. I'm just going to put a big amount of bandwidth there, but then all of a sudden, the thing that people mess up is they stop doing the cold email or they stop doing the paid ads, and that is what really kills them. Rather than just saying, all right, I know mentally my focus is going to be on content, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to drop off the paid ads or drop off the cold email.
Yeah, I think that's something that 1000X has actually taught me a lot of, because like now it's probably something I've been subconsciously doing, but I will spend most of my time, like out of all the channels I operate, like I will spend most of my time making content or coming up with content ideas. Mind you, my content doesn't like blow up. I get clients from content from getting like a mediocre amount of views, but it's like, for me, it's just been about producing quality content consistently and nurturing people. But something that 1000X has sort of by design got me to do is not neglect those other channels. Where in the past it was like, all right, I'm going on a sprint with cold email, like 3 weeks of like, I'm just going to max cold email, and then 3 weeks of just ads, and then 3 weeks of, all right, content. Where now it's like, no, I need to be spending my time on content. But even if cold email's not bringing me like 1,000 leads a day, like if I can just still get it ticking and making it profitable every month, I need to be able to keep that running. It's all like, I think for me, it's been understanding the finances behind the acquisition. Like you have had some really good pieces on that yourself about like the LTV to CAC ratio and being able to understand like if you can pay X dollars for a client with this lifetime value, that's going to be profitable for your agency. And I've always been a bit of a numbers man. Like I did finance at uni before getting into this.
That's helpful.
Yeah, and so it was learning like if I can just extract the value that I need from each channel to be profitable, like it's beneficial to spend time on it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I guess it kind of does bring up a good point as well, because we've kind of covered it, or I've touched on it a few times, but scaling that quick with email marketing is not an easy feat. So what do you think it is that has really allowed you to just continually get clients? Because it is such a challenge. This is one of the biggest challenges for a lot of email marketing guys. So what do you think? Is it your service delivery? Is it you're just good at ads? Is it that you just have good content? What would you say it is?
Oh, I mean, like, you've always got to have good service delivery, but I think service delivery is like a relative thing. Like, I have no idea how the other email agencies fulfill. I've seen accounts that I've audited, and like maybe that's about it. Like,
yeah.
So as long as like service delivery for me is just a matter of like, is my client happy? Like, maybe we're 10 times better than other agencies. Maybe there's another agency out there better. But if I can have a really good relationship with a client, build a personal relationship with them, be there for them when they need to be, and fulfill at a high level, like we're all happy. So service delivery is like, I think, a really personalized thing with what that actually means. But I think like personally on the scaling front, like, it sounds really simple, but just showing up, like having my tasks and knowing that each day I show up and being able to sort of delay that dopamine. Like when you're starting out, it's so full of dopamine. Like say for example, like hitting a 50K a month, like that was a massive goal for me. And when I hit 50K, like it did not feel as good as when I hit my first 10K a month.
Yeah, that's
like,
so true.
So when I hit my first 10K a month, it was like, holy crap. Like I remember telling some of my friends and I was like over the moon. I'm pretty sure I probably messaged you or something. And I was like, man, this is gnarly. Like, and I had the energy to keep going. Like that next few weeks, it was like, oh, I'm showing up like in a big way. But then just being able to show up when it's not like that, like when it sucks, and knowing that like these are the tasks I got to do. I wake up, I do them regardless of how I'm feeling, going to bed. Like that's been the biggest thing.
It really is, like, it's crazy. It really is that simple. And if there's one sort of message that I want to definitely just propel, is just like, screw all that complex stuff. I don't want to do that. Maybe it's because I'm too stupid to do the complex stuff, but I'm just going to just do the simple stuff, because that is what actually works. Or at least I shouldn't even say that. It's what's actually worked for me and all my clients. Whenever it's become complex in any way, I've almost just installed this belief that like, if it's complex, it's bad. If you have to talk about your offer and there's 50 steps, it's bad. We get this outcome and this is what we do. And the only stuff that we're ever going to focus on ever is the stuff that directly gets that outcome.
Yeah. Well, there's been two things for me which have really reinforced that. The first one is like, working in e-commerce or working with e-commerce clients, when you look at a successful e-com store, like say a store doing a couple million a year, you'll speak to them and they've been in business for like 10 years. And learning that for me was like, wow, like I've really got to put into perspective that I've been full-time for a year. Like sometimes time is, like if you're doing the right activities, sometimes time is just the answer. The other thing was like with the complexity point you just mentioned was Matt had like a really funny thing when I first joined of saying like all those fucking agencies that say like, oh, we have like the 3-pronged like pyramid system for scaling, like that's why you got to trust us. I used to see that shit and it would like do my head in. And then seeing Matt just say like, yeah, nah, it's bullshit. I was like, oh, thank God, like someone else is thinking this, because it was doing my head in.
Because I don't have a pyramid scaling system. Oh, it's over for me.
3-step email marketing acquisition pyramid or some shit. Like
it's over for you, bro. If you don't have a 3-pronged pyramid system, scaling partner, AI automation, just pack it in. Seriously, it's over. It's absolutely over. But no,
it's just the state of social media though. Like honestly, that I have kids in my DMs, like because I will post a bit of content, but my content is never targeted towards the consumer, right? Like I post content to businesses. So, but I think by design, I have kids in my DMs being like, sort of just naturally trusting me in a sense, because they're like, well, he's not trying to sell me anything like he's selling other people. Like I'm going to go ask him for advice. And I just always tell a younger kid, like it feels weird giving advice because like I don't feel like it was that long ago I was in those shoes, but it was always like, man, you just got to block the noise. Like there's no quick wins. There's no hack. There's no 3-prong system. There's no like, you're not doing anything wrong. You just got to pick something and be good.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, if anything, if I was to analyze 1,000x leads, I'll be like, maybe it almost appears too much like some crazy system, because we do have the flowcharts and stuff. But I think what I really want to focus on for us is just that message. It's like there's actually, like if you think there's going to be some magic pill, you are very, very wrong. All you want to focus on as a service provider, us included, is just how can I make this easier and better for my clients, and how can I just take more work off their hands and give them the right stuff that they need to get the result and nothing else.
I think 1,000x is unique though, because it's like, yes, the flow chart and the funnel is complex, but it is complex. Like I'm not sitting here saying like the answer to running a business is really simple, because it's not. Like there's a lot of complex moving parts, but it's about boiling it down to like the answers are there for you. Like you know what you need to do. It is complex, but if you just chip away at it and you just show up, like you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think there's a good caveat to what I just said as well, which you just mentioned, is that something might just be inherently complex, but the goal should be to boil it down to as simple as possible, even if that level of simplicity isn't always simple, because it's not always simple. It's just you want it to be simpler.
Well, one thing you've always said to me was like, it's sort of something I've always lived by, and it's like the old cliche, like, you know, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Yeah. Like I've always thought about that. Like I've always been into my fitness and stuff, and like when something's physically hard, it's always like, I've always told myself, I guess, you know, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And then it sort of, that naturally came into the business side of things for me, because it was like, yeah, like running, like making money and making good money is hard. That's why not many people do it, sort of thing. I guess, like, in a sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's always going to be that way, I suppose, but yeah, I mean, it's probably like there's no real way to refute that. It's like that's just a fact of life, that everything is going to be that way. But yeah, if we can make a quick pivot towards, let's say if someone was in the exact shoes that you were in 4 months ago, and don't sort of mention like 1,000x here, but I want you to just give maybe 1, 2, or 3 action items that someone who's watching this video can go ahead and take and say, Angus did this, and you're completely, you know, as unbiased as you possibly could be. Obviously, you know, you're a pretty chill guy and you're a nice guy, and you'll want to appease me and appease 1,000x as much as you can, hopefully, if we've done a good service. But outside of that, what do you think are a couple of things that someone watching this could implement and take from this video and say, yes, I just learned that, I can go and execute on that?
I want to say, the first one I want to say is get a mentor. But I had people tell me to get mentors.
Get a mentor.
And I had no idea what the fuck that meant. And I still almost don't. But for me, I posted this the other day. Like the first one would be, instead of scrolling on social media or watching YouTube mindlessly of like 1,000 different accounts all telling you different things, pick like 2 or 3 people that are a few steps ahead of you that you can resonate with, that you know aren't a bullshit artist. Like that was sort of the mindset behind me reaching out to you initially. It was like, I've spoken to Leo before. I know he's from Australia like myself. I can trust him. He's ahead of me. I'm going to go fucking ask him some questions. Like, and it really like blocked out the noise coming from other parties. So for me, it was like sort of try find like a trusted source of like truth in the space for you, whether you want to call it a mentor or someone who's just doing what you're doing, who's like maybe 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. Like it doesn't have to be like go message Alex Hormozy. Like it's just fucking find someone who you can trust and make some friends in the industry, because that'll really help you when it's tough. Like that was the number one thing sort of at a holistic level. In terms of like some more micro things, maybe like the time blocking was ginormous for me, like because everything is so overwhelming when you're trying to start a business. Like there's a million different things you could be doing and there's always going to be a million different things to do. Picking like 4 or 5 things that are like, these are my things, you know, make an Instagram video, DM like 50 people, check my ads, like making like a list of things I need to do and making sure I do them all, say, before midday, before I do anything else or waste time doing anything else, has been massive. The other one I honestly think is a bit left field in the business sense, but it's like, you got to look after yourself too. Like something that I really struggled with here and there was going all in on things, like the whole monk mode, like go all in on your business. I performed way worse when I neglected the things that I love, like health and fitness, for example, like, or like getting sun or like going to the beach and stuff, like things that like make me tick outside of work. By making time for them and making it all fit in, I guess, while also operating at a high level is crucial to operating at a high level long term. Otherwise, you're going to be good for like 3 weeks and die.
Yeah, you definitely have to keep your mind fresh. And I think that's a big thing, because the only way you get to do that stuff and completely switch off and go to the beach or go for a walk or whatever is if you have that time block. Because the biggest problem that people have that I recurringly see is they sit down at their desk for 12 hours, achieve nothing, then they take a step away from their desk and they're like, oh my God, I still can't switch off. I'm still checking Slack on my phone. I'm still messaging clients. I'm still doing all this stuff because they didn't make enough progress in that time.
Oh yeah.
So they step away and they're like, shit, what did I even do today? Versus kind of what you're saying is if I just tick all those boxes that I know I have to do, I can step away and even just feel like, okay, we got better today.
Yeah, legit. Like it's a big part of it was knowing that, okay, if I do these minimum things and I'm still feeling awful, like say I'm having an awful day, like I feel awful, I need to do my non-negotiable things. I need to do my client fulfillment. Some days, maybe that takes 7 hours, like here and there. It's like, all right, if I need time to myself, like I'll go do that. So it's been like allowing myself not to buy into more crap on social media, which is like, you know, telling you to flog yourself. But it's also like in my daily habits of like, these are the 5 things I have to do. One of them will be like, go to the gym. And it's like, I'm not letting myself miss that, because that goes into your standards in your business as well. Like I've got to hold myself to a high standard personally, or the business is sort of going to crumble in a sense.
Yeah, 100%. That's something I've seen as well. Like as soon as there's almost a singular fracture in that routine or in those standards, I've just seen it kind of leak through to other areas. Like for example, if you allow yourself to just not do the stuff you say you're going to do, it just spreads. And it's the worst. It's just terrible. I think if there was one action item, it would just be if you make a promise to yourself that you write down, or even make a promise to your team, like the simplest stuff, like I'm going to show up at this time to this meeting and I'm not going to be late. Or this is something crazy here. I hear people pay their employees late. And I'm like, that's your team member that rely on you. How is that going to happen?
Yeah.
Like how is your team going to trust you? So it's just doing all of these things that are really, really basic things that you just have to stick to, otherwise it completely ruins your business.
I think the attitude thing, like on that, is something that's been massive for me. Like I made a focus from the start of being close with my first few clients on like a personal level. Like my 2 first clients are like close friends to me now. And it's like we still have a good business relationship. We still have a good working relationship. We've been working together for like 3 years. And it was like just being a good bloke helped me so much. And so when it comes time to like paying people, you got to do it on time. When it comes time to being, you know, going to a meeting 2-3 minutes early, like waiting. Like it's like you got to hold yourself to these high standards where people are going to like respect you as a person regardless of your fulfillment. Like I've fucked up in fulfillment before, like everyone has. Like I've had clients which maybe I haven't got the best results for when I was starting out or something. But it was like they were all very salvageable relationships where we left on great terms and they're happy to give me a referral or a review because they like me and trust me, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a forgotten thing as well, is just that level of humility where it's like I have the level of humility to just respect everyone else to where I'm going to hold myself to a big enough standard where if I mess up, it's not as if that's the level that I hold myself to. Like you almost have to hold yourself to a higher level of accountability than the client's holding you. Otherwise, if they're trying to bring your standards up, it's like, what are they doing? How are they
Yeah.
paying you as a service provider? That makes no sense.
This is also like a weird roundabout into 1000X though, because that was something that like I'd always held myself to high personal standards. Like maybe it was like the way I was brought up or whatever. Like, but I mean, 1000X made me like write it down. Like one thing that like you guys were really big on was like write down the standards you actually want to hold yourself to and you want to hold your employees to and stuff, and like don't forget them. Like don't forget them. And it's actually been massive. And I think a lot of people think it's like woo woo or it's like, you know, stuff like that. But genuinely, something that helps. You got to quantify that shit.
Yeah, like I think I saw a tweet the other day and someone was like, I got a quote from 2 service providers and one of them said, oh yeah, this is like the fastest this would possibly be done. This job could be done in maybe 6 to 12 months, maybe, if you're lucky. And then another service provider was like, yeah, mate, like we'll get this done in 2 weeks, no sweat. And it's just because you can see the way that it does trickle down where it's like, one person will say our standard is that, yeah, doing that website or doing that thing, that's going to take this amount of time.
Yeah.
And then it just takes one person to be like, well, what if we just did it in this time? What would that take?
Yeah.
Like, would it just take us, well, maybe as soon as they send the contract and it's paid, maybe we just need to start working immediately and get something done in the next 24 hours. Whoa, shocker, you can just do that. Like, you can just make it up that you just actually get the work done very quickly. And it doesn't even take hustle. It just takes
cost anything either.
Yeah, it costs you zero. It just takes deciding like, hey, this is going to be beneficial. It's going to help my client. They'll have a better experience. And there's a 99% chance that I don't make less money as a result of this.
I think I kind of slandered like the social media before and, you know, going on Twitter and seeing people ahead of you, like making you like freak out and stuff. But I think it was pivotal for a lot of my mindset of that there are people always doing better than me. Because when it comes to service providing and fulfillment, I'm always telling myself, like, if I'm not doing this, like, someone's fucking doing this better than me. Like, I will always have a mindset of, like, every single day, which is, like, fuck, I could probably work, like, an 18-hour day or something and convince myself that there's, like, 10 other email marketing agencies that have just worked, like, a 40-hour day somehow.
Well, maybe they are. Maybe you need to go harder.
Literally, maybe they are. And, like, it kind of sounds counterproductive to what I was saying before, but it's, like, it's a fine balance. But I think, like, you've got to hold yourself to standards where you believe you could lose everything at every moment, but you've also got to hold yourself to like look after yourself.
Yeah, well, I think it's just having a level that you yourself are happy with, where you say, if I work this hard, I'm happy with how hard I worked. And you just have to make sure that that bar that you set for yourself is high enough to actually get your results. And that really over a long time period pretty much determines what happens. But yeah, I think that's probably just about everything that I wanted to cover off. I guess aside from telling everyone to get a mentor, which is like the most guru thing that you could possibly say, aside from getting a mentor, obviously we've discussed this, but you get a lot of DMs from people asking, similar to Brian, who I just talked to, you know, who's this guy, Matthew Larson, what's with the Miro boards, what's with, you know, Leo looks like a 12-year-old.
I get so many fucking LinkedIn DMs about 1000. Yeah, it's crazy.
So I guess if you were to just talk to all those people at once, I guess what would you tell them? That's probably the easiest question.
Oh, it's gonna sound blunt, but like if you want to scale an agency, like there's nothing better on the market. Like it sounds like a sales plug, but like I've bought coaching programs before. Like I bought everything under the sun, and 1000X is like been the only one that's like worked for me.
Beautiful, man. I'll send you a $10,000 wire just straight away after this meeting. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much everything, dude. I'm really excited to see what you can do, because I think, like I said, the only lesson that there is just make a strategy, make it good, hold high standards, write all this shit down, and then just make a promise to yourself, I am not going to deviate from this no matter what. Like if it gets to 10 p.m. and I want to go to bed at 9 and I still have to do another hour to hit my work forms, or I have to do another hour to finish the task for the day, that it just happens no matter what. If you can just do that, I will personally guarantee to you and pretty much anyone, you will be better off from it. That is not going to hurt your life. Guaranteed. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what you can do. If there's anything else that you want to cover off, by all means, let it rip. But yeah, it's been a pleasure talking.
Nah, bro, it's been really good. It's been really good. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome, mate. Well, I'll see you around. We'll grab a feed after this or something. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. So cheers, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.